and hello everyone, and welcome to this 10-minute mentor video for the California Lawyers Association. My name is Anthony Lai. I am an associate attorney at Pasadena, doing family law. And I'm joined by two great panelists this morning, Caroline Ham, who is a family law attorney in the Bay Area, as well as Michelle Lee, a trust and estate attorney, who is, I believe, also, you're based out of North Cal too, correct?
I'm in Los Angeles.
You're in Los Angeles. I'm sorry about that.
That's
Okay.
right.
So we're talking today about our annual conference program that we recorded and that we're going to be presenting at the California annual conference this week. I believe it's on Thursday at 11:30 a.m. It's a great program. It's called Cultural and Social Considerations in the Practice of Law. We had a really great discussion about a lot of, biases that might exist in the practice of law, and I really enjoyed having the ability to kind of hear different perspectives, both from the family law side as well as the trust and estate side, and really got some great stories out of everyone about how implicit bias as well as confirmation bias, we'll talk about that in a little bit, can permeate the way that we basically look at the way that we deal with the courts, the way that we deal with our clients and things like that. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Caroline, for joining me today. And we're going to have a little chat about some of the things that we brought up during that program. And if you haven't registered for it yet, I'm just going to add one more thing. There's still time. Definitely, if you can, register for the program. It's going to be a very enlightening program. I believe it's the only elimination of bias CYLA that's being offered during the annual conference as well. So it's going to be a real enjoyable program.
Mm-hmm. And I will just say I really enjoyed having the chance to talk about this, especially during this climate, because you hear a lot of buzzwords being thrown around and why, taking into account like social and considerable biases and stereotypes is important, and why we need to be mindful of, and self-aware of the position that we take up. And I think having this chance to talk with the two of you and how it also manifests in our professional lives, and not just our personal lives, was really enlightening and meaningful for me.
You know what I also enjoyed, part of our discussion was about the role, how we can be active in acknowledging our own biases and the role we can take to kind of eliminate those biases that we may be confronted with, or that we may ourselves have in the practice of law. So I thought we did do a good job of discussing the role we can take as individuals in working on our own biases.
Yeah, and I remember when our program, I think we started off our program with a very cool hypothetical that really kind of reveals what type of implicit biases and the pervasiveness of those implicit biases that we each hold, regardless of how much we want to tell ourselves that we're conscious to these things. The very nature that of implicit bias is that these things are almost subconscious. You don't realize you're making these judgments, these types of decisions about other people, not even just kind of consciously doing so. You're just kind of doing it in the back of your head. And I thought that was a very cool hypothetical. And I think, Michelle, that you came up with that kind of exercise that we did.
Yeah, and I got that from our diversity director at our firm, so I can't take credit for that hypothetical.
Well, it was a really good one. I enjoyed that one a lot. Yeah,
I did as well. I think one thing I also enjoyed and I kind of took away from our discussion was we're not expected to be masters or be expected to be experts in every culture or every society. The whole purpose of our talk was to be mindful of them and just do the research that you can, but go in with this very leave room for particularities and for individualism, because our culture and the way we grew up is a part of who we are, but it's not the totality of who we are. So I liked that discussion that we kind of had.
Yeah, that was a very cool one, because we kind of talked about how different cultures interact with the legal community and the legal field. And especially how some clients might have certain cultural backgrounds, societal backgrounds that really differ from, the American culture that we kind of have all come to learn and adopt, and that is basically the community language of the legal practice. So, Carolyn, we also talked about how sometimes clients might have a little bit different of a background from us, and how that might affect the way that we interact with them. We had a great story. I think I had a great story about a Japanese client of mine that I didn't really understand their background, and there were some etiquette things that I wasn't aware of, and I came to learn that probably would have been better to know from the outset. But Michelle, you bring up a good point. There's just no way for us to consciously be aware of every single culture out there. We just try our best to be open and receptive to different backgrounds and things like that. Yeah.
And you know what, Anthony, I think that's what it is that we are not going to be experts on every single different culture, different, and I don't mean ethnic culture or religious culture. Like, there's many cultures that we are all a part of. We're never going to be well-versed in every single culture, but it's about taking it a step further than just saying, oh, I have implicit bias, or I have bias, I acknowledge that. Like, okay, well, let's deconstruct that. Let's examine the bias you have, and let's kind of break that down so that when you are dealing with clients in the future and helping them, you can hopefully come from a more understanding approach.
Right.
We were saying how a lot of our clients, I know in family law, I'm sure in estate planning as well, and a lot of other types of law, we are storytellers. We are trying to convince the trier of fact that our story should prevail because for X, Y, and Z. So it helps us to get a better understanding of our client's position, our client's story, and helps us to better articulate that story to a judge. If we can eliminate our biases and kind of have a dialogue and understand where the client is coming from, I think that makes us better storytellers.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's a good point. And I wanted to touch on one thing that, we engage in this practice, we engage in these exercises because we want to become better attorneys, right? And in order to become better attorneys is to break down those barriers of communication and trust between your client and yourself. So that's an important reason why we need to kind of recognize our own implicit biases. But we also kind of talk about a little bit of how it is pervasive throughout the legal community as well, how it's kind of existent in the court system. And something that I think Michelle and Caroline, you guys both brought up was, with the courts being backlogged, that really kind of creates a ground, a breeding ground almost for these implicit biases to really kind of go unchecked, because mentally it's very easy to just kind of compartmentalize things just for the purposes of making things a little bit easier on yourself. I think that was a really good point that you guys brought up.
Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of hits on the point I want to also raise. It's how much proactive action is required of us to kind of, Caroline, you were saying it's not enough just to recognize, oh, I have implicit bias, which is also, that's a big step, and not to be undermined. That's a big step. It takes a lot of self-reflection, but it can't just stop at that, because I think, as we discussed, stereotypes and biases kind of take the forefront when we're a little bit lazier in our thinking, or when we resort to our default, because to counter those things that we have ingrained takes effort, and it takes a lot of energy to counter that. So I think what I took away from our discussion is to be mindful, but also be disciplined in countering and being energetic and proactive to make sure that I'm seeing through the biases, or recognizing the biases, and then trying to critique why I hold those biases.
So I think the big takeaway is you haven't signed up for cultural and social considerations in the practice of law. It's a great program. We cover a lot of ground. I'm very thankful to have the co-panelists that I had on board. I thought we had a really engaging and kind of great, open, safe space discussion. I would highly recommend, if you're not registered yet, get registered. Get registered for the annual meeting. It's going to be a really, really great set of programming. I know it's kind of different, being kind of all in different places, but I really do think we put a great program together. I wanted to thank Michelle, Caroline, thank you guys so much for helping me and putting this program together. And we hope to see everybody at the annual meeting.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.